Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a look at a stack of material analyzing the really devastating impact of Hurricane Melissa. And the initial picture is just stark. I mean, catastrophic loss of homes, total ruin of crops, instability, and just profound mourning.
It is. But what's so interesting is that the sources we've gathered, they all point to this classic response.
Right.
The kind you see in communities that are, hardened by adversity.
hmm
They turn this trauma into invention.
And that's really the mission statement for this deep dive, isn't it?
It is. We're shifting the focus from just the damage assessment to the economic opportunity that follows. And the sources are unanimous on that.
What are they saying?
That this period represents a once-in-a-generation economic window.
Hmm.
So our goal is to extract the specific sectors where the immediate needs of reconstruction, well, they overlap with the long-term goal of nation building.
And strengthening climate resilience.
Ex-
Right. So this isn't about capitalizing on a tragedy, not at all. It's about smart, future-proof investment. The objective, as the material really lays it out, is to build a demonstrably safer, more climate-adaptive Jamaica.
And in doing that, generate thousands of sustainable jobs.
So we're focusing on what will build a future that is, food secure, energy flexible, and economically diverse. Let's start with the most immediate need. Okay, so let's unpack this by starting with the most visceral need, construction. When entire communities are just wiped out, the demand for competent general construction firms, it just explodes.
It does.
But the sources note a serious bottleneck here.
A huge one. The demand will exceed local supply for months, maybe even years, in the hardest-hit parishes.
Which means the firms that can scale up quickly are the ones that win big.
That's the reality. A massive, immediate need. But, general construction, that only addresses the volume of it. Hurricane Melissa exposed a critical, sort of systemic design flaw in so much of the island's housing stock.
The roofs.
The roofs, exactly. Many structures were just not engineered for sustained Category 4 or 5 winds. They were built for rain, not for the kind of lateral lift and shear forces we saw.
So we're not just talking about repairing shingles. We're seeing a massive specialized demand now for people who can fix this fundamental flaw.
Precisely. The highest demand specializations are in roof reinforcement and metal roofing services. And this isn't DIY work.
No.
We are talking about professional contractors who focus intensely on specific resilience elements, things like installing hurricane straps.
Which connect the roof to the walls, right?
Yes, the metal connectors that literally tie the roof trusses down to the walls, and ensuring the proper pitch, metal sheeting, reinforced rafters, and this is crucial, robust anchoring systems. If the roof system isn't tied down to the foundation, the whole building is vulnerable.
But aren't these specialized skills? I mean, they're expensive and probably in short supply. If the core structural integrity depends on something like a hurricane strap, but the average builder doesn't know how to install it properly, won't that slow everything down?
Well, it creates tremendous educational opportunity
Huh.
and an accreditation opportunity.
Oh, okay.
The successful construction firms will be the ones who get their teams certified in these specific high-resilience techniques. And, the upfront cost of proper hurricane straps and reinforced anchors, it's a tiny fraction of the cost of rebuilding the entire house next time. It's an investment that pays for itself in the first storm it survives.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, let's pivot from wind damage to water. Because you can fix the roof, but if the water has nowhere to go, you flood the community, you compromise foundations. Jamaica's vulnerability in these intense rainfall events is less about the total amount of rain and more about where the water goes after it hits the ground.
Exactly. And that shifts the focus to drainage and flood mitigation contractors. The sources emphasize this urgent need for companies that can design and construct essential managed pathways for water.
So we need proper drains, culverts.
Culverts, the tunnels that let water flow under roads and what are locally known as soakaways.
Now, for listeners who might not be familiar with that term, what exactly is a soakaway and why is it so critical after a disaster?
A soakaway is a drainage solution. It's basically a pit filled with rock or a modular chamber, and it's designed to let surface water dissipate into the ground gradually.
Preventing flash floods.
Exactly. If they're blocked or badly placed, all that water runs off, and it destabilizes hillsides and road embankments.
And this is where it gets really interesting because that connects construction to the bigger picture of, climate intensification. You have more rain, running over exposed, destabilized hillsides, and suddenly you need engineers who specialize in prevention.
And that leads to a major boon for retaining wall and slope stabilization contractors. As climate patterns give us more intense, unpredictable rain, hillside communities face these catastrophic landslide risks. This demand, it signals a real philosophical shift in engineering, moving away from just quick, inexpensive concrete blocks.
So what are the better structural solutions being required now?
The required solutions are reinforced, resilient systems. For instance, the demand for gabion baskets is huge.
Those are the wire cages filled with rocks, right?
They are just wire mesh cages filled with rocks stacked like massive bricks. And the reason they're so critical is that they're flexible. They can shift and move a little with the ground without fracturing. And they're permeable, so water flows right through them, which relieves the pressure.
That flexibility is key because the ground is never perfectly stable.
Absolutely. We're also talking about reinforced masonry walls and, scientifically engineered slopes. And this is critical not just for private homes, but for safeguarding public infrastructure. The damage to vital road networks, especially community roads, was so widespread, it guarantees long-term contracts for these specialized civil engineering firms.
So if that first section was about immediate critical rebuilding, this next part seems to focus on the longer-term investment in prevention.
Exactly. The financial and, frankly, the emotional cost of rebuilding. After Melissa has created this overwhelming demand for resilience, proactive retrofitting suddenly seems a lot cheaper than going through another complete rebuild.
So homeowners and businesses are now actively seeking out resilient services that go way beyond simple repairs. We're looking at things like structural retrofits, getting professional assessments, deep dive hurricane roof upgrades, and maybe the most drastic measure, elevating vulnerable parts of the house.
Or even the construction of in-home safe rooms.
The safe room idea is fascinating. It's as much about psychology as it is about engineering.
It really is. It's a fortified core where a family can retreat during the storm's peak. And while it's expensive, the peace of mind, that assurance of survival for people who just lived through Melissa, it often outweighs the cost.
And if you look at impact protection, the standard has completely shifted. Plywood over your windows is no longer seen as insurance.
It's a delay tactic at best. The demand has spiked for truly robust protection. Like, we're talking laminated impact glass designed not to shatter violently, or permanent metal solutions like rolling shutters and accordion shutters. These are essential for mitigating damage when projectiles are flying at Category 5 speeds. So contractors specializing in designing and installing these are seeing a massive surge in business.
Now let's talk about the resources that fail instantly when a storm hits. Power and water. I'm thinking of this as a sort of climate adaptation trifecta, and it starts with the simplest thing, keeping the elements out. Waterproofing.
What's fascinating here is how the global climate adaptation sector is just mirrored locally. Waterproofing and sealing, from high-grade roof membranes to foundation sealing, it's listed as one of the fastest-growing climate adaptation industries in the world.
It's a low-profile, high-impact service.
It is. It protects the entire building from chronic humidity and, of course, acute flooding.
Okay, then you get the energy crisis that always follows a major storm. Once that grid goes down for days or weeks, the desire for energy independence goes from being a luxury to an absolute necessity.
That surge is explosive. The demand is immediate for solar installation, and specifically, systems paired with robust batteries.
Right, because panels alone aren't enough.
People are realizing that. You need battery storage to ride out the grid failure. That high upfront investment is now just seen as the cost of doing business, or the cost of household security.
But not everyone can afford a full solar and battery setup right away. What about the reliable backbone of backup power?
We can't forget traditional backup power. Reliable generators, sales, rental, and especially servicing, that market will thrive. The surge in demand means a lot of people are dusting off old equipment, and that creates a lucrative market for technicians who can rapidly service, repair, and safely integrate generators into home electrical systems.
And finally, water harvesting. If you can't rely on municipal water after a disaster, self-sufficiency becomes crucial.
This is the truly sustainable response, and it's seeing major investment. We are seeing huge demand for rainwater harvesting and filtration systems.
So that includes big storage tanks, good filtration.
And crucially, there is massive demand for first flush systems.
Ah, okay, that's a technical term. What is a first flush system, and why is it so essential for clean water after a storm?
A first flush system is, well, it's a smart mechanism. It diverts the initial dirty rain runoff.
Okay.
The first rain that hits your roof is always full of dust, bird droppings, debris, pollutants. The first flush system makes sure only the clean water that comes after that initial wash-off actually enters your main storage tank. Without it, you're just storing contaminated water, which makes the whole system useless or even dangerous. And this is especially urgent in rural areas.
Right. Reconstruction is a massive logistical challenge. So we need to shift focus now to the systems required to facilitate all this rebuilding, starting with the heavy lifting itself.
You can't have a rebuilding boom without the right tools. Heavy equipment rental is absolutely critical. We mentioned that smaller contractors will do the bulk of the rapid repair work, but they often lack the capital for, excavators, backhoes, loaders.
So the rental business becomes essential.
Highly profitable and essential to the economy, especially companies that offer reliable service and transport.
And the physical task of just moving materials and all that debris, it's colossal.
Absolutely. We need a massive trucking and haulage capacity, not just for delivering aggregates and blocks and lumber, but also for the huge task of efficient debris removal.
And that requires specialized firms that understand regulated dumping.
It does. And speaking of disposal, the sources noted an interesting income stream that emerges from the destruction.
The scrap metal.
Yes, scrap metal recovery, downed metal roofing, damaged machinery, destroyed vehicles. It's all scrap. A well-regulated recovery, processing, and export model can turn cleanup into a legitimate source of capital,
And it prevents mountains of refuse from just sitting there.
which is a huge environmental concern.
Okay, moving on to essential services. Storm damage always exposes electrical and plumbing weaknesses. It often creates extremely dangerous situations. What safety and utility upgrades are non-negotiable now?
The electrical sector is paramount. Damage causes exposed wires, saltwater corrosion, fire risks from overloaded circuits when generators kick in.
It's a mess.
A dangerous mess.
Yeah.
So demand is surging for professionals doing rewiring to current code, upgrading breaker panels, proper generator integration, and installing whole house surge protection.
Yeah.
This is a high-trust, non-negotiable sector.
And the plumbers are just as essential, dealing with burst pipes and contaminated lines.
Things that affect health immediately. We're looking at demand for skilled plumbers covering everything from water heater replacement to pump installation and even sophisticated leak diagnostics.
The sources also mentioned a niche demand.
Yeah, for gray water recovery systems, which allow you to safely reuse sink and shower water for irrigation. But we cannot overlook the single biggest hidden health risk the source identifies:
Mold.
certified mold remediation services.
And why is mold such a major focus now? Isn't it just a matter of cleaning and drying things out?
Unfortunately, no. Jamaica's high humidity, combined with storm flooding, creates a perfect environment for black and toxic molds. Mold remediation is a specialty. It requires environmental testing, controlled removal, negative air pressure, high-grade chemical treatments. If you neglect it, dangerous mold compromises homes and schools, leading to chronic respiratory illnesses.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So with all this specialized, urgent, and often expensive work happening, it all requires some kind of high-level oversight.
Absolutely. This is where construction project management becomes essential for post-disaster recovery. Project managers step in to handle the chaos.
So they're coordinating contractors, managing tenders.
Exactly. They ensure compliance with new building codes, and crucially, they manage procurement and budgeting to save clients massive amounts of money and prevent reconstruction fraud. They're the conductors of this whole orchestra of rebuilding.
The agricultural sector absorbed just heavy, heavy losses from Melissa. The source paints a painful picture.
Destroyed fields, lost livestock. It's brutal.
But with that massive loss comes an opportunity for innovation. I mean, climate-smart farming is no longer optional. It's mandatory insurance.
We cannot afford to simply replant the same way and expect different results, not with escalating climate threats. The shift has to be immediate and structural, aimed at protecting the supply chain.
Which means...
Intense demand for protected agriculture structures like greenhouses and shade houses.
How does that immediately help a farmer who just lost everything, though?
It's an investment in resilience. Greenhouses and shade houses are designed to shield crops from wind, heavy downpours, pests, extreme heat. They stabilize the growing environment. It's basically an insurance policy against the unpredictable weather that defines the new climate reality.
And farmers need to pivot fast, which means an urgent, high-volume demand for seedling nurseries that specialize in resilient varieties.
They need specific types of stock: short-cycle crops that yield fast returns, disease-resistant varieties, and hardy seedlings that can quickly supply both commercial operations and backyard farmers. The focus is speed and robustness.
And while waiting for those new crops, there's the immediate crucial need for farmer income.
That's where fast crop farming comes in.
What kind of crops are we talking about?
Things like greens, herbs, microgreens, callaloo, pak choi, they turn around in 2 to 6 weeks.
Ah, so it's an immediate cash injection.
It's an essential cash injection that helps bridge the gap until longer-term cash crops can be harvested. It stabilizes the local economy, parish by parish.
This moves us into food stability, which it seems like it's often found in the processed, value-added products, not just fresh produce.
That is the long-term resilience strategy. When fresh crops are unstable because of the weather, entrepreneurs focus on processing.
So things like,
Think of products like dried herbs, seasonings, frozen vegetables, sauces, marinades. Value-added production creates financial stability. It minimizes vulnerability because the ingredients can be preserved and sold year-round, regardless of the most recent storm.
and finally, there's the critical logistics around national food stability. We need to make sure that after the next outage, vital institutions, hospitals, schools can still be fed reliably.
This creates a critical need for institutional food supply businesses. Businesses that can guarantee delivery, storage, and safety standards for large-scale clients. And that requires sophisticated planning.
And critical to that guarantee is the infrastructure of
Cold storage facilities.
mm,
Post-disaster power outages make reliable cold rooms and refrigerated containers absolutely essential for fisheries, meat processing, exporters. If the cold chain breaks, national food security breaks with it.
So, to synthesize this entire deep dive, the opportunities identified in the source material, from gabion baskets to solar batteries to mold remediation, they're not just random business
Yeah,
ideas.
they are the pillars of national resilience.
And the sources argue really forcefully that Jamaica cannot afford to simply rebuild the past.
This is a moment of painful transition, but it's also one of profound opportunity. We have to use this necessity to build a climate-resilient, food-secure, energy-flexible, and economically diverse island. This whole process will be costly, but the cost of inaction, of failing to adapt, it's far, far higher.
The pace of that recovery, though, seems to hinge on one thing: the efficiency of supply chains. The source material highlights the central role of importing specific building materials, metal roofing, high-grade fasteners, hurricane straps, and emergency supplies to accelerate it all. So if the speed of the national rebuilding hinges on the efficiency of these imports,
Then the provocative thought for you to mull over is this. If the bottleneck is getting these critical items from the port to the construction site, what unintended economic opportunities might emerge upstream, specifically in 3PL third-party logistics and micro-warehousing? For those businesses that master the art of rapid fulfillment, storage, and inventory control of these critical imported goods, their mastery might just be the single biggest driver of private sector growth in the immediate future. It could define who rebuilds fastest.